And then I was just kind of summarizing dashboard, that was dashboard.
Love it.
Whatever numbers I could get from that, which I've kind of looked at a couple times already. And again, Helen will send you what I've kind of said already, actually. The other thing, we were talking through law enforcement, the law enforcement participation. I don't know if we have how many were volunteered, but there was over 100, over 120 surveys completed by law enforcement, which also seemed higher, but if you had 40, we were just doing about 2 per law enforcement. I also noticed some of them were assigned other ones. So we got a shout out to Tarpon PD for doing, being inclusive this year. And also talking through where they had self-reported for the most. The veterans, I have 95 veterans is what pulls up the dashboard, with no minors. So, who wants to learn? No, they would, that would be part of shelter. That's a part of it. This was just straight out the 95. There's always very few minors, though, it doesn't. Yeah, I think they were going to yeah, to fill those records.
Anytime, once I get this up and running, I could pull the dashboard up if you want folks to see.
Honestly, I think we're almost done with the
Okay.
dashboard, but then I'm like, here's my own visual. Household for families, there were 21 households, were for a total of 79 individuals. However, majority of them were reported that they were on the street. I'm going to finish stating that events or that usually was following this strategy to ensure that they were on SPL if they were not. I think it's started off. By long. But if they were, I believe that ended up in capital letters. So if there were 21 households, and only 4 of them were on the street, where were the rest of them? How did they get it? So those were probably those from the SPLs, so there's like the hotel, which should also be PFLs. There are 88 families on it.
I can note, when they did the SPL calls, they tracked how many people actually answered and then how many surveys they were able to do from there. So they weren't actually able to reach every family on that Friday. And of course we couldn't do the surveys Saturday, Sunday, or Monday because that was into February. But they did call down all of those. They also made some calls down the veteran list and reached every family that they were able to. I will say that the most surveys, I actually gave an award to the team member that made the most phone calls and the team member that did the most surveys as an incentive. So the most surveys done by an HLA team member on Friday was 13.
The most surveys done total. I'm shocked.
Was it Kathy? Because Kathy did a lot.
That's Kathy Ham. With 50 surveys. She was deployed, I believe, all 4 shifts. So she was pretty young early, right? I'll tell you, we did not see a lot of teaching for a while. And then that with the surveys, I wonder how many her team members did.
So I will say Kathy went out in the morning. I believe Kathy went out with a team in the morning, and then Kathy did not come back to rejoin a team in the rest of the morning or for the afternoon. And Kathy went out and surveyed, I think, with Clearwater PD for the rest of the day.
She must have been, because I didn't see her out and about.
Yeah.
And so second was a woman named Kate I think, not poison, you know, it's called poison, but, not poison, but, she had 37 surveys. I will mention. I feel.
She's a volunteer.
She's a familiar, she was out involved.
Did she?
Did that mean right?
Like you said, she used to, not she needs to. You know what? You're right, Dominique. How many of these people who did all these surveys are looking for jobs? This feels like a good marker for all of us.
The other one I wanted to give an honorable mention to, was Kevin Moreau. He really wanted the most surveys, or was that out a whole other trip to try?
Did he really?
He was with me in the morning. He did crack the top 10, so he cracked the top 10.
What was the number?
He did 17.
Tell him that we know.
Oh,
Yeah, that is absolutely honorable mention for that one.
The reason I also wanted to honorable mention him is because, we have a lot of layers of staff that participate in that, and I think first time I met him was when I volunteered for 6 a.m. shift 10 years ago. He was there at 6 a.m., 9 a.m. out as the CEO of habitation on the COC board as well. But I just think that was interesting. I think he needs to have more. I mean, part of it needs to start, but I only know that because her other half, Sarah, did 2. And Sarah did 3rd, yeah, 3rd, and Brian only did 2, and he was standing right next to her. And she kept asking for her, and he said, I'm moved up, and he was finding every excuse not to follow that. And so, Sarah was 3rd, you can tell her. Kevin's gonna do it. We need to make Kevin a but he's not, it's not.
I like the words.
I worked there, but he started out as lowly as a direct staff, right? We have, you know, to see, yeah. You should see the email from. I will. And like, it's certainly is. And like there's. Let's go. We're going, I mean, he was inside. So I was like, we had one person that was new and I was like, I can't just leave them on the sidewalk. And I looked up and Kevin was recording it. I'm like, it's okay. Go Kevin. You got, but he helped a lot and you can tell that he thoroughly enjoyed it. There was someone who noticed him right away. Like literally he had no clue who she was, the lady he talked about in the park, but he walked up and she knew his whole name and from years ago. It was years ago, and she said that she'd never been to Hope before. So whether or not that, I don't know. To have people recognize you and take the time to have that conversation and still complete that many surveys, because we were at St. Vincent de Paul at 6 o'clock in the morning, was really. So would anyone like to make a motion for that? I mean, what are we thinking? Do we have any other CEOs at this point?
Yes. I would have to actively like pull their name off the list.
Like from the COD
Board. Yep. In fact, Kathleen did first shift and she voluntold her husband in the first shift as well. Love voluntold spouses. They're one of my favorites. I know that Miss Teresa Jones participated. Lee, who is on the HLA board here, participated. David Moran participated, and he got a bunch of the public defender's office to join in. Nick Carey and Mick Constantino from the HLA board participated. Tony Caruso from the HLA board also participated. Let me see, as far as I'll have to pull up the list because I did actually have a list of board members that participated, so I can let y'all know. I was sure to let board chairs know that City of St. Pete has council meetings, so Councilmember Deborah Vick Sanders could not be there.
We didn't have one Thursday.
Oh, well, they think you did.
Their Thursdays are already, but I would say we didn't have one.
Okay.
It just happened, but
most of the time, yeah. So, but that is, yeah, I'd have to pull up my full list, which I can do, but In the meantime,
That is then. He wants it to be excellent, because on the thing it says, does it say good? Does it say good or great or something like that? He just wants it to say excellent. Yeah.
There was a data quality question, and he's like, as good as the highest you can get.
He wants it to be excellent, but it should say excellent, why? Anyway.
I was like, I don't know skills.
I feel like we often, I often hear a lot of asks of COC board members to participate in things and that they should be at some of the committee, at the committee, meetings, they should be a part of the smaller, the committees, stuff like that. So I think that if they have participated, then we certainly should recognize them, COC and in LA.
So do you want, are you thinking like thoroughly letter from the pay committee, thinking that for their participation in it, or I think signed by, I'm just thinking.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Or to do that. So what's, is there any recommendation? Like maybe something like pit champions or something like that, like, thank you for being pit champion, helping the, pay the day of and.
Well, should we make this something that we ask, like, the board to review so that we get more buy-in and absolutely even more? Participating in next year's event?
that was something that I wanted to ask today is if everybody thinks that for next year's timeline, if we can do our deployment zones and surveys by early to mid-October, should we host a work group meeting with, subcommittee chairs and board members that want to come to that work group meeting so that, feedback can be provided. Alternatively, there is, of course, the September or November COC board meetings, but those are a little bit, outside of our typical.
Those things can be pretty cool.
Yes, they can.
The
So,
only reason I keep things together, right, is because that will also be who's signing off on the contract during the
Yep.
service. So we would want them to hopefully have that same experience that we're talking about.
I think we can make Kevin do a promotional video.
Boy, oh boy, that's a real reward for having.
Perfect video.
He gets, on video.
yep, Ashley did participate. That's right. That's, I was gonna pull up my,
So when signing up training versus participated, do we have that list of people who actually participated? I know you gave the number for yes.
yes.
But how do we get that back?
You want to see the list of your volunteers that participated? I can do that.
That actually, because
Yeah.
that actually, that follows through.
We did this year, that was a new feature this year, that we will actually check for in knowledge, so if people know,
HLA staff have some advice for that one for next year.
Yeah, and beyond what was needed for like that.
No, they liked it. They just want better workflow for next year since it's a new process. Okay, so I do have the list if y'all want to know, board members that participated. We already talked about the HLA board members that participated, and of course, our interim Erin did, shift. And then on the COC board, Anne Marie Winter with Area Agency on Aging, Ashley Lowry with Blossom Capper with the VA, Camille Henry with HCA, David Moran with the Public Defender's Office, Janine Evoli with JWB, Kathleen Beckman plus spouse, Kevin Moreau with Foley, Sam Picard over at Mizio Day and Baycare, Ms. Teresa Jones, and then Ross Silvers with PSTA. And then I also thought that it was worth mentioning when I sent this information to chairs, though these individuals did not participate, their team members were really involved in the planning committee and did have a lot of participation. Councilmember Deborah Fix Sanders from St. Pete, Councilmember Mike Menino from Clearwater, Commissioner Donna Hulk from Largo, April Lott over at DFL. Thank you, Michelle. Danielle Thomas at St. Pete Housing Authority. St. Pete Housing Authority did have some good participation. Elise Minkoff with Pinellas County Housing Authority, Commissioner Vince Nowicki, because, well, Pinellas County is just such a huge part of this project. Michael Gelazzo with Kirk, and Lieutenant Zach Page, of course, PCSO. Thought it was important to note because sometimes things do come up. For instance, council meetings, which I guess weren't that Thursday, but I thought they were. They do come up and people can't participate. But if you're sending your entire staff to work on planning for months and you're having half your people come out to volunteer, I think that that is really worth considering. So.
It'd be easier to miss somebody that was playing a important role, I guess.
Right,
So,
that's the scary part about this, recognizing the day of it versus the planning, they more.
Well, I do think that we should focus on that individual that has that much power over making decisions for services, having that experience. At least for me, like that was, it wasn't solely or it was heaven, it was the impact, right, that it's having.
Yeah.
So far removed. What's really happening.
Yeah.
And board members too, right? That's equal.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. So, Madam Chair, what did you want the follow through to be for our board members that participated and for our board members who went, even further above and beyond, and our CEOs and stuff?
Brainstorming, we're gonna use reverse, so. Well, I definitely think day of, but I think that, maybe we should talk about, is there a separate recognition for just overall commitment to it, from an agency? Or group.
So I guess the substance are we good? So what I hear you saying is you're trying to make a motion.
So I
For
would
us
make
to
a
call
motion.
it some.
We need a motion for us to do something. A motion for us to do something would be to recognize those COC board members or HLA board members who participated in the day of it. I recognize what you said, which is why I'm hesitant to make a motion, because then you need someone out who ultimately participated just as much as they could. So let me make that motion, and then with a second, we can discuss it.
So that's the motion. Acknowledging the CEOs, and then I'm gonna say, do I have a second? Okay, so Helen made the motion, they went a second.
You guys did two
So
different
now,
things.
actually.
You said COC and HLA, and you said the,
COC, HLA board member.
You said
Because that would help,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really good.
COC, HLA board member.
Okay.
You got it original, yeah?
Okay.
David, second, Helen.
Okay.
All right, now let's discuss. Thoughts? My thought, I'll go first, is do we establish like 5 awards that become an annual reward?
Love that.
That would be my thought on that, right? Because we could acknowledge one group of people now, and then what do we do moving forward? So it's setting.
I think it would be setting the tone for next year and kind of walking into, like, going into it next year, already knowing like this, and then incorporating that into all of our planning as we plan.
You, like, I'm always a friendly competition.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'll play it.
We're gonna ask you for who recruited the most, because there's a friendly competition that goes on.
There is.
So like.
You don't say.
So like what agency has the most representation or a recruit person, that like is designated.
Okay, so most volunteers recruited. Okay.
most surveys.
Most survey, I mean, that was pretty,
That's what Kevin was.
did you do what they do?
Yeah, deduplicated.
Oh, that was so hard. Yeah.
And the only, I agree with the most surveys, I like that, because it's friendly competition, the only thing with that is like team leads are kind of, you're trying really not to do this survey, so. Funny to me that team leads are the ones that.
Well, I mean, I'm excited for the
I didn't do a lot because our team is there.
So what you're saying is, there's going to be
Still running for agency recruitment.
But.
Well, there could be an individual survey and a team survey. Cover both bases.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take a video.
yeah, let's do that.
Exactly.
Let's do the individual.
I'm volunteering for the first shift in the morning.
Yeah, I want to learn more first.
Someone either on the COC board or someone on the leadership. As like the ambassador from the board. I think that's, yeah, how you title that, small title.
Is the investment fit?
Champion or the
Champion of the bit.
because you're like championing the cause, like, first place. Yeah.
And not like champion, like.
Yeah.
Don't tell Kevin.
Yeah.
Those who've been doing this for a while, or trainer, like bigger, who trained the most, is that one we're interested in, you give your subcommittee.
Guess I'll take myself out of that one.
Too, like, we have, we have a lot of agencies participate, but we have a lot of volunteers that aren't, this isn't part of their job, and like, some of them probably still volunteer for that too, like, I don't really want to.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
non-affiliated,
I would network volunteer.
So, yeah, it would-
advocate volunteer. How do we feel about that? Community advocate?
There are people, I mean, we trained a couple that were straight out of community.
That's probably more impressive.
Okay, I'm gonna put them up here so we can see it. Proposed awards. We have, most volunteers recruited.
That need to show up.
I was gonna ask, I wanted to know.
I think they have to show
Um,
up. You all can take that.
Who goes with this training? You never know, like, our career completed training. Yeah, completed training, but some of ours, like, ended up with flu that day, and I'm glad that they can show up.
yeah, they flew on. Community, community volunteer champion?
I would say keep it in that champion language, or.
Okay, so most volunteers recruited, what about most volunteers participating? I feel like we're gonna need to narrow down eventually, but, or no, because of what you said about the getting sick and stuff, okay, that works for me.
You can define the recruiting later.
Is
Recruited and trained.
I would say, because they would do the training process.
recruited and trained, okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
At least that's, they made it, get trained and maybe.
All right, what about most trained volunteers?
They've never been on truly miserable day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Every time we recruits didn't show up, that's, I want to get creative, 3 years ago.
Was it, how, when was
Like 2 years ago.
it?
Yep. This year was hot, last year was hot as nice, but the 2 years before that were miserable. Hell,
President Whitfield, 16.
yep, and I will know,
Yes, it was, not 2 years ago, but before that,
Yeah.
I worked.
Okay, so I can-
It wasn't Florida, it was all day.
Yep.
About 8, 10 years ago, it was cold and gray. Tired.
I was gonna say, you keep track that on your somewhere. I know
not on the survey, but we
Oh, you
mark it in the
did.
report, yeah. Yeah, we mark it in the report. We also, I believe it's one of the things that HMIS reports to HUD as well, as their like things that impact the surveys.
Yeah, so they're trying to bring us back to the emotional table.
Oh.
So would anyone, are we considering any more awards
Like I had somebody.
or, are we good?
Most trained volunteers.
Now, is most surveys completed gonna be individual and or team or both? I mean, we talk about individual. Okay, good.
Okay, okay, so in that case, let's clarify, most surveys completed, pit champion, community volunteer champion. Let's clarify those to make sure that the same person isn't receiving an award twice.
Well,
That would be part of the community volunteer champion would be the person that is not affiliated with what we do, right?
Not affiliated with local
Yes.
government or agency.
Yes, but
Right.
could they also be, most surveys completed?
yeah,
And would we be comfortable with them winning both? And then what makes them the community volunteer champion in addition to most surveys completed?
It could be
you know what?
working multiple shifts.
Okay,
And by the way, by the next year, they might be affiliated with an organization, they get 2 awards, so.
The community volunteer. You can do multiple shifts for, I don't know that I would say, because we have people like in our utility accounts department that volunteer at our library, they know, they know what they do every day.
okay.
But were they getting paid while they're out there, or they have to take time off?
No, we, the city allows you to get paid, but you get paid for the city, yeah. But I would imagine that's the same thing for the agencies too, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I would think that it's somebody who this isn't their regular.
How hard is this gonna be? Are we getting into the weeds so much?
This last week seems a lot hard, and I could throw out and pick up the location. There is someone from the Chicago, she is, she works out of the Chicago, outreach, homeless outreach, but this year. So she was at our community. She was volunteering for it.
And it's been great insight, I've already got the one.
Oh, yeah.
I love learning about other communities' pits. Yeah,
I don't think we know that about sharing on social media, right?
I-
feel
that
like
is
we're getting
kinda
too far
hard.
in the weeds of-
that's kind of hard. Okay. Okay,
Or define it later.
You're gonna get together and decide and vote on PSCs.
Yeah, essentially,
So we can just decide this person gets this one, you pick somebody else for this one.
Yeah.
no, I agree with that with the multiple awards, that was
Yeah.
gonna be my
You just-
thought, so.
You just pick.
Yeah. That's like,
You've already gotten one.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be, that's hard, and I was.
You get time to do it.
Bored.
okay. Do we want to take out the last one then?
Yeah.
And by the way, if we want to do that, we could call most surveys completed volunteer champion. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, let's see, yeah.
Yeah.
Or survey.
Survey champion?
I'm survey champion.
I will wait till you change it before next October.
And so I think this would be decided on this meeting here as well, right? So the probably once
Yeah.
we push it for.
Do we have enough people to vote on?
The voting on this, in this, maybe it's a little.
But what we can do is, I think this would be a really like exciting thing to go ahead, and if we wanted to either make the recommendation for, and then Madam Chair, you can make the recommendation official, or we can take it to the larger board if desired, but Madam Chair can all.
Too complicated, I know.
Yeah, Madam Chair can make it official.
We need a motion for the amendment, correct?
For what? We didn't say specific things.
Okay.
Okay, so that we can be really sure about this, are people eligible for more than one?
No, I think we said that. I think
Okay.
it's going down.
Okay, eligible for what award per year? Other than like the most survey, is there anything else that goes into hit survey champion? We're just doing most surveys, cool. Leading the most training sessions, that's easy. I can just do that by numbers. Pit survey, I can just do that by numbers. Person who trains the most volunteers. Oh, no, that's the agency that trains the most volunteers.
The agency that provided.
No, it's the agency that has the most.
Yeah, there we go. All right. I fixed myself. I made sure I wasn't confused later. All right. So the agency that recruited the most trained volunteers, that's something I can just pull based on numbers. The only one that we would really need to, I think, get together and vote as a group would be the pit champion. Do y'all think that that's right?
Yeah, so that might be too, a combination of how many from their agency participated,
Right,
and then if they participated.
Right.
Well, I really wanna make that whole thing is that somebody that's a decision maker about the COC has the experience.
Yeah, that they participate.
So whether, like, I don't feel like that should be related to how many people in their agency or anything. Who
Okay.
participated that day.
So what if there's more than one then?
Did they
Wait,
participate,
no.
maybe how many surveys they have, you may have followed it down once you. How many shifts they were? Yeah, how many shifts they were, I, like, yeah, I. Put in the lot, what's the thing? And,
Cool. Yeah, we could probably even look back and see how many they participated in store. Right now,
Like that. Like that.
That should impact it, that should not impact this year.
Just Lisa Freeman, this is her first year not here. I gotta say, otherwise you would be lost. Okay, so do y'all feel okay about these as like tiebreakers? All right, so then eligible for one award per year. COC planning or pit planning committee.
Yeah, I don't think we need high record or anything, I think just consideration.
You know, just they factor the way.
Yeah, I think,
I mean, I'll just like, I can. Off the top of my head right now. Definitely in person.
I mean, you are one of the top.
I mean,
You did all season.
few people work as many pit hours as Dana Kelly every single year.
Yeah.
That's nice, you know, I learned a lot.
Okay, so agency that recruited the most trained volunteers. Pit champion, that's a BOD CEO, COC decision maker. And we have some considerations like, did they participate? How many shifts did they work? How many team members did they recruit that were trained? How many past pits have they participated in? Things like that. The person who led the most training sessions, that is not HLA, or that isn't me at least, and pit survey champion for the most surveys completed during the day. People can only win one, and the pit planning committee will vote on number 2. Anything else? All right.
All in favor? I opposed. She has unanimously. We now, want to move into making the decision.
I think we probably should.
Okay, then I'll make Kevin Rowe.
So I hear on the floor from Dana nominating Kevin Brown for point time champion for 2025. Right here, second. Helen second. Any conversation? All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Excellent.
Thank you for that discussion. So, going back to the original agenda.
Can you really quick, just to add on, and not necessarily today, but just to think about is, you talked about doing a commercial for next year. You could potentially use feedback from those 4 people to make.
You remember that we did a video that we filmed years ago on how to like interview skills. Thinking County actually did that.
It's so awesome.
It does, really. So,
Do we get a, radio or TV at all?
yeah, they usually get a lot of.
Okay. I guess I just don't watch my thing.
It's okay, every once in a while, I saw you on the news yesterday.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, by the way, there are more avenues that we can take. There really are. There is,
Like them.
Public- that's-
Radio.
yeah, they do, like a public service announcement that we didn't do this year that I want to do for next year. Still play a public service announcement, like please sign up for PIT for 2 weeks.
Right.
I think that, part of it though, too, is like looking at the utilization of volunteers we had, like, I think maybe the other point of thing too, like that one portion. That in a lot of areas, and like, I know for us, I was brought up, or some of the volunteers had mentioned about, and I don't know if we can do it or if we want to do it, because I can get like skew data too, but if there's extra events those days, I know we used to try it with the teens, but people were walking miles and miles and miles and miles to find a person. And so, can we even reduce it down a little bit so that people would have an option of finding more people? But then they were walking for a mile.
Yeah,
So then, I mean, like 12 to 15 miles.
On the turn, those shifts.
It's
So,
under.
right,
There wasn't a lot of people.
like, I feel like we needed more on that early shift than we got, we should kind of have maybe.
yeah.
Those people won't volunteer the next.
That was definitely one of the things I noticed when I was doing scheduling, is that the process that we had talked about for maybe doing volunteer registration, that just kind of took a little too long for
Yeah.
this year. I think for next year will be good because we can cap the number of people who volunteer per shift. And I think that will be really, really helpful because the number of people that volunteer for 9:30 and 1 p.m. is overwhelming. And I emailed every single person that volunteered, most of them individually, to ask them if they'd only done one shift, to ask them to do another. And it is, I do think that it would be really good if we could figure out how to better drive people to 6 and 4. That's
So I will say, I looked at Hillsborough and I was gonna bring it up later, but it actually adds to this part of the conversation. They pretty much have an Eventbrite ticket that has a limited number of tickets for county locations. So, 5 to 10 over, of course you wanna have a little wiggle room, but you have a cap of that for people registering.
Do we need a third shift?
That's the whole.
Do you mean the 1 shift or the 4 shift? Oh, okay.
Do we need 1 to 4?
The one, well, I was gonna say that next. I
Or
think-
47, I thought you took people down, you get a lot of repeats then.
Well, we gotta find out, like, we didn't realize on the meal sites, it was no longer on Thursdays, it's on Fridays. So we went out there expecting it and then it's not there, so, I'll check that next year, but I don't know if we have a current list of meal sites and just have volunteers enough to cover the meal site for that one.
The people you survey said, hey, Tarpon Springs, it comes at 10 o'clock, they're gonna do this at 8 o'clock. We're going to Tarpon Springs for the next, we were 12, 40
Yeah.
survey.
That's my concern with doing like events for that day, even though it draws people out, but you're not gonna get accurate location of where
they're really-
taking the survey. So I think it kind of skews that, and like,
That happened this past year, and I see it again on the ECAP, Whalen Drink Center, does it at a park in Pullman. And it is a very big heat map, I don't know how true the heat map is, are they there because it's an event? Or are they there because they're at that park already in the neighborhood? I don't know, how many there were this year? If you know by chance, but, 61. It was pretty much that last time, so you see the real hot spot, when it's zoomed out, it looks like Nels Park, but when you zoom in, it's that little party.
Just,
That's-
people.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's literally the park where they all hang out. And they walk between our office and there. Anyways, all day.
I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the map, but as I do this, I'm gonna ask everybody, this is not cleaned data. This data includes duplicates. This data is not for public consumption. Please do not share this data with anybody, no screenshots, nothing like that. I did all of the same disclosures for my team when they saw it yesterday too. But so that you can see what that map looks like since Dominique is talking about.
Details for reserve, how they done.
They do theirs in February, because otherwise it would overlap with Gasparilla.
They could use the drums with an almost gas.
It would be a tough pit to do over Gasparilla. I think about that all the time. Yeah, that's the map in case anybody's curious about it.
Why are we
Oh, because we were talking about Lealman.
I'm just playing, I just walked in and saw that, I'm like, where all this stuff down there?
The really cool thing about this, y'all, is when we do this, you can actually like click on the individual so you can see how big the household was and stuff. And we'll be able to filter through. It's not working right now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll fix that one. That wasn't a good example.
There's a couple of things off maybe, I got to fix a couple.
There we go. See, that one, that filter worked. So that's frequent area of stay, tenant city. But yeah. Just wanted to pull up that map since Dominique was talking about there being a big blob. I thought it'd be good to see it.
Well, so I think for the, urban reports yet, we need to really look at how many surveys were completed that were not
Mhm.
fits. And help that guide whether or not we really have.
So one thing that I did hear too, someone said, is like, especially for the daily and stuff too, is you're gonna catch people coming off shift at 4 o'clock. So I think if there is any, maybe instead of doing the phone one before, it's maybe like a 3:30 check-in, get out to specific areas at 4, so it might be where there's meal sites and your day labor sites.
So it'd be like a 3:30 to 6 or something like that.
Right.
I think what you were saying, is a little bit, we tried to do this year, is looking at how, once we get the deduplicated, how many actually were completed. Yeah, because,
In what section? Yeah, I mean, it may be, you know, more.
Yeah.
But this one does, thank we, all the people that feedback have created the 1 o'clock shift was like, yeah, everybody went off to.
I think we should do that with all of the shifts though, because I think that was still the same case for the 9 and the 5.
Yeah.
I know for us it was, and we were on safety free clinic for 9 o'clock, LA, where people would be at. And I think April and Shuggies were on in an area where people would normally be at, but if you've already been surveyed.
Yeah.
Then, or you just aren't in the area now at that point. Not good.
So
Do
we-
Why do they all have to be for second year? Same year.
That's what I'm saying, maybe look
Yeah.
at it where they are with the times and then cater. For them, we
Yeah.
4:30 to 6 or
Yeah.
4:30
But
to
not
7, and then
Well-
on mill site. That's
Right, but not each specific place.
yeah, because like Largo, for instance, doesn't have a PM. We did add one for Pinellas Park Feeding that no longer exists. So Largo's back to no 4 o'clock. As we're talking about this, I'm wondering, do we want to adjust? Or do we need to look at the data first and then decide if we want to adjust like the morning times? Because I'm wondering if having a back-to-back shift, even though we've made the 9 o'clock shift 9:30, would it make more sense to space that out a little bit? And maybe even the 6 is a 6 to 10. Maybe it's not a 6 to 9. No, we got to know for that.
That's a long shift. I mean, my thought would be, we'd actually, I don't know what, somebody plays up, or like 6 8:30 to 9, but might overlap with next shift start a little earlier because the, seem like they have the spots between 8 and 10.
We were in, I'm sorry, we were at, Williams Park, and like that first hour, there was no one.
Right.
They can't be on park, so we have Williams Park.
And it's dark.
So we had one person within that first hour, from 6 to 7, once the sun came up, then everyone started coming out.
Right.
We walked the whole downtown, not just Williams Park area.
I did that.
Ways, how they survey all portions. Is there a way that it captures the time the survey was?
Mhm. Yep, we actually,
Like, you 5 or 6 or 7 and
Yeah.
100 from 7 to 8?
yeah, we can look that up because it does timestamp. It tells us when the survey was done, who did the survey, and even latitude and longitude of where the survey was done. Oh, they also mark their zones, of course.
I think it would be a lot. But I think if we do that,
Gotta
then
do it.
you would have, like, I'm gonna think, at St. Vincent de Paul, it makes sense to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Although I've been doing the St. Vincent de Paul for years, so I'm
Same
trying to
thing.
figure out why St. Vincent de Paul doesn't do St. Vincent de Paul, but that's okay. But that's okay. That's the courtyard area, so we do the people in the courtyard in the street. But for Williams Park and like Unity Park, places where we know public spaces where they can't go until the sun comes up, does it make sense to then deploy a team at 7:30? So that's a lot in the way of timing for the HLA, like you have multiple shifts, there's a whole lot of shifts, but it only makes sense that, I mean, because I will tell you that I got that from a lot of our team members, that they were pretty disappointed that they did not have the opportunity to interact with people, and they were in spaces where people normally are, Salvation Army, Women's Park, those places, right? But they were very disappointed. And so if we stagger it to the time where we know, like, say, our Salvation Army, midday, they're having lunch, you're not gonna find anyone around there, so that's.
I think we might need a better handle, like, from all, I know we have a good portion of the street outreach folks on the employment thing, but areas that were not covered, like either getting law enforcement in those areas to tell us what areas and what time of day are the main areas that are seeing people, and then maybe from that we can compare up, because we have all these volunteers, but maybe there's areas we're not hitting, and we should be sending people to instead. That would be during that whole trip, so.
So one of the things I've been saying is like, kind of like that return on investment, like, I can send you to this block radius, but how many people are you actually at the survey? And so part of it is that also reality setting, like.
It's okay.
The reality is there's 750-ish that are unhoused, and there's 300 on. So the reality is you're only doing 2 to 3 surveys. Because like, it is a lot of you back it out. Then they have a third of the survey, right? So, I mean, the reality is you will be out there for 3 hours and you may only capture 2 to 3 people. And so I think that's really helpful in the training for like the student level setting. But like, yeah, when you look at this deployment, I know, and I know St. Pete knows, there's some people up there by Gandy, and there's none on the team now, right? So, where were they? Where were they? I mean, there was, yeah.
To that extent,
But that's not, but that, like, he would say that.
Both.
does law enforcement,
Yeah, so the law enforcement, so what we did this year.
I was gonna say, that's what we were in our past team, Mark.
I noticed they were like, I noticed some path ones in, like, Duke property, like US 19 and 31st, like between there, and there's the law enforcement ones there, so I'm gonna see candidates sort of there. For that pop up, but like, I was gonna say, when we did the law enforcement training, we ended up sharing. I merged all the deployment zones and locations and made like one, like a short sheet and said, hey, these are where volunteers are going. We need you guys to go somewhere else.
what is
So,
yeah,
and you see like there's the Bay Pines one, you see there's one, it looks like, was that West St. Pete? I don't know what that is. There's the St. Pete Beach one this year, there's a couple in Palm Harbor, those are the law enforcement. Department had a bunch of law enforcement as well.
What if we had a, like, at least some of the volunteers that, especially that aren't normally in this business or whatever, or some that are, but in the areas where we know are hotter spots, and they're gonna be actively doing that, and then in the areas where it's so sparse, maybe have agency teams of 2 people that are driving around, looking to see if they see anyone and then pulling over versus walking 15. But, you know, you could easily go through the Seminole area, like Boulevard or something, pull into a parking lot if you see somebody, probably cover more of those blank areas without walking.
3 hours, and having that lower expectations, like, we don't really eat, it's like, there's one area where you're walking 3 hours of alley. 3 miles of alley, right? Or do you wanna go to one park? Like, we try to like ask people kind of, people do give you accommodations, we're trying to be respectful of, but some of them are driving, and some of them are walking.
We can both drive and walk.
Maybe the color code, whether you want more physical. Or something you have to, rather than, you know,
Nothing, I just said it's for your email.
Oh, did you?
So I summarized a lot of the numbers on this already, but I did not give the whole do not share with others, but the whole duplication, things need to be filtered out and do that over and over again. So those are some of the potential be sharing. But the volunteer participation feedback, if we could dive into that, we are on schedule.
Absolutely. Okay, what do you guys want to see most of all? Because questions answered, I don't know, I picked it up right. Okay, questions answered included, what do you think people should know, or what did you learn during PIT about our neighbors without homes? I'm gonna go through this and find some key stuff that we can use for future marketing. Yes, I can. Yes. Before we go through all of those, a lot though, also, what was your favorite part of PIT? And what do you think that future volunteers should know about participating in PIT? Then we asked if they enjoyed volunteering, how effective training was, how the check-in experience went, what they thought of the app, how communication was rated, and then if they had questions, comments, concerns, or ideas. Those are the questions. They're also like, you know, a couple of like submit pictures if you have them and things like that that just weren't quite as important to this, I felt. But so as far as because it's easiest to go through these, did you enjoy volunteering? 9 people said yes, and 12 that completed this, or 3 that completed this said somewhat. How effective was training? Most people thought it was pretty effective. 9 people gave either a 5 or a 4. 3 people gave a 2 or a 3. Check-in, everybody really thought that was pretty great. 10 people gave it a 4 or 5. 1 person gave it a 1. 1 person gave it a 3. I do know that we had 1 person show up who didn't set up an account, didn't go through training and like that. So I do kind of wonder if they might have been 1. How would you rate your experience using the app? Again, feedback from there was pretty positive, though a little bit more split. 6 people gave it a 5, 3 gave it a 4, 2 gave it a 3, 1 gave it a 2. How would you rate communication? Most people thought it was good. 11 people gave it a 4 or a 5. 1 person gave it a 2. Of course, not all of these are required questions, so not everybody answered every question. And those are the ratings. Then as far as what do you think people should know, or what did you learn during PIT? They feel there is not much being done to help them. It just confirms that there's a real need for folks to have a safe, clean place to lay their heads. A lot of people deal with mental and substance abuse issues, but they're all human beings who deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. The extensive diversity of those who are unhoused, that everyone has a story. Everyone has a different story. That people primarily experience homelessness due to a lack of income or support or ability to find affordable housing. that we have to be willing to look. Little advice for future volunteers, be willing to look because we don't always think people are where they should be. There's a shout out to dedicated staff. I'm going to include all the committee members in that and all of our deployment leads and everything. This is from somebody who works with our folks every day. And love seeing how strong and resilient people are and, you know, wish there were more housing opportunities. Reaffirm that a lack of trust in solutions with too many strings attached are problematic to solving the issues. Due to law change this year, we did not see as many homeless people. A lot of people were priced out of their housing. A lot of unhoused people have serious psychiatric illnesses and we need long-term supported housing. Dominique, did y'all talk about the impact of the anti-camping law before I got here at all? Okay. That is something that I wanted to ask y'all what feedback you have received here, because I think that this is really, the feedback I've received from people about this is pretty universally, fewer people participated in the surveys. More people outright said, no, I do not want to participate. Some people straight up said, no, I'm not completing that because of that new law, or no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to be on police's radar. One person even reported saying, absolutely not, I'm afraid of ICE. So it was really, and then of course, like you said earlier, fewer people were in public areas in that really early morning shift because it's illegal now to sleep, you know, in that area. So that is some of the feedback that we received there. And I think it's really, really important for us to consider and for us to share with other groups.
ICE is a real here. I mean, you know, and if agencies haven't started having those conversations, they need to. Like, you know, I have staff that believe if they show up at Safe Haven, that they just have to let them in. I'm like, no, absolutely not. And you come down to the Hayesville. But, you know, I mean, and I have people there that are undocumented. It's the only place in the town that I'm aware of that they can be knowing that they're undocumented.
Because undocumented people in Safe Harbor.
I thought you know what's happening for so many days.
If they've been in the area, it doesn't, we believe they've been in the area, so.
Oh,
We have
okay.
several,
I didn't.
we have several undocumented.
There's new states. Really want to speak about.
Yeah.
There's others on this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, I mean, I just know that the one that ours is written to say that we actually can, it's funded to say that we actually can. But for the people that are on the street. Right.
Yeah.
The people that are on the street, that's a very, very real concern. And, you know, there's already the issue of people not trusting law enforcement, and now with this camping law, plus the decisions that the current United States administration are making.
The weird thing is, like, how did we get almost the same amount as last year? Does that mean that our numbers out there are actually much higher than even last year with all these new changes? Like, how do we account for that?
We got less than,
Oh, I thought you could.
Yeah, there were, I think, 1247 done last year.
And how many this year?
1114.
Before deduplication?
Yeah, before deduplication, I think it was, I want to say 1236, 1247, something like that last year. Does that sound right to you, Dominique?
And we're at 12. You said we're at what this year?
1114.
Okay, so it's a little bit less.
A little bit lower, and there was more work done, on that Friday, the follow-up.
Right.
So
Yes.
I mentioned
Definitely.
the Ready for Life, Directions Hotel, and you all with the Family by Name List and Veteran by Name List, you said?
Mhm.
Would that be all the call downs?
Yeah. Yeah, and we did do Family by Name List last year, and Ready for Life did do their call downs last year as well. But the FL edition and the Vets edition is new this year.
Suzanne said that they were considering doing like the 16s down, like the by name list, is that did not happen?
Don't believe that she got to that. She kept adding on to the list as the day went through to get as much in as we could. I don't believe she got to that list, but I'll be honest with you, she might have added some of those on and some of those might have gotten done and I just don't know.
Is it worth considering if that's something that they're going to explore to make sure we're capturing, to have that piece that we talk about, that other people can help make those calls?
I think that'd be a good addition to keep.
For next year.
I just think key to have that, and then because. of
Volunteer
that,
opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider it, if there's that many people that actually calling, you really want to capture it, I'm sure there's people that could do that.
And that might also help, because like we have some folks that are not very mobile.
Right.
And they can just make phone calls.
Ooh.
I don't.
The thing about that is we would need, we'd need, it
Like,
has to be folks with HMIS access. So that would be,
Yeah.
but if you have a team member who has HMIS access and who can work from home and is sick and was gonna participate that day, maybe they're one of the people that do call downs. Or maybe you have somebody who like only has an hour that day, but they have HMIS access. Maybe they make a couple of
I
calls.
mean, it's something to consider and to just capture, even if we're still the next day, and you need the team of people, then it would be a discussion for another opportunity where, if, you know, I think if I had a team member, whatever, we could do it with that.
Yeah.
So back to what you were saying about your law change, I wonder if it would matter to look at the number of people that were at Safe Harbor last year on get. If that would be a different number, or you think it would be a different number?
Well, so they do look at the HIG, which is all the shelter that is reporting. And so that was one of the feedbacks from this past year, is that there was overall, the total identified homeless actually went down, but the unsheltered went up because shelter went down. That's what happened last year. Like the current year that we have. So they'll be, he looks at that as part of the analysis, it's like the shelters as a whole. That shelter did go up, but overall homeless went down.
I would think that it's just based off where we just find people in safety. I can only speak to safety. I mean, and the fact that they weren't, it wasn't that just that they weren't in the park, that they weren't anywhere around, like they were just not there. Like we did 60, I think we did 58 surveys at St. Vincent de Paul, where normally we do almost 100 easy. From the people that are on the sidewalk, there were probably 4 people on the sidewalk. Everyone else we surveyed, we did report. And so, normally there's at least 40 people on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the same for Clearwater, right? I mean, I mean, I've historically done Clearwater, and it's like this year was nothing, I mean, it was.
But I can believe it on a regular day, and we're seeing that, you know, that.
Right.
Going out is like I know for Todd, is the phone volume is huge, so trying to figure out, we can see like their water Wi-Fi. But we're trying to dig even further into that and start to think with always getting that or immediate, or imminent homelessness. We get calls from like seniors are gonna be out the next day versus street homelessness, to see if part of that call volume is urgent, imminent homeless versus street homeless too. See if that might be part of the call differential between what we're seeing.
Yeah. But your question on the law, I think that has a lot to do with it. I even questioned this year why we were using law enforcement, because I'm not sure, if I were living on a house, I would not talk to a law enforcement person. If they knew where every other law enforcement is different, where they have street outreach and law enforcement, and that might, like in Largo, they might be okay speaking to they might be okay speaking to our CAP officers. And yet, if another officer showed their face, they might not be so okay with that. And so I questioned why we're using law enforcement this year. I understand why, because we're not gonna send volunteers in places, but I would be interested in how many they surveyed this year versus last year.
When we first got to Wheeling Park, the very first guy who walked up to me and said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "It's it." He's like, "Oh, you're not gonna see anybody here, but the cops ran everybody out, they're probably all in jail." Oh, wow.
That's, okay, so that was another thing. That was another thing that we ran into, where in some areas, volunteers were being approached in the middle of surveys and being interrupted. You were not the only group, but it was particular to North County. They were being interrupted mid-survey to say, you absolutely cannot loiter here and you need to go as soon as this survey is done, even in the middle of the day.
I mean, yeah, he stopped us, and, I mean, he was very, very polite, pleasant, and he didn't come all the way up to us, and as soon as I turned around, he said, oh my God, or whatever, but it was enough to detract from the interview.
Yeah.
And then there was another guy that was over to, he would talk to us after that.
Yeah, that's,
So you missed, we did recap part of that.
Yeah.
We only heard it, specific to a municipality, so we did look at the arrest data, there was nothing substantial in it, so, but I'll go back and we'll look at it across, we can look at everybody for the arrest.
Cause they count, I think one thousand almost.
Yep.
Did you?
I wonder if those.
They will get counted, yeah. But we have access to look at those who were arrested that day or the day before, and what their charge was.
But it's not general.
Still working the other
um,
Only part of the judge data, if they went in and out. So it is, 4:28, and so I really want to be considerate of everybody's time. We definitely did not get through the agenda, the shift things, so, okay, 126, when's the first meeting? I'm sorry, I'll get it September.
I think August. August
August.
sounds right.
August is when our, the 2026 meeting is. We kind of brainstormed through some more things, but I don't want you to forget the feedback that you have on shift changes, on where to go, stuff like that. So, please email those. You can send them to Victoria or myself. I'll send them to her anyways. And then the point in time, planning committee, we talked about policies and procedures. We were just talking offline about this, is that it is a committee of the COC. The rest of the committees do have policies and procedures. This one doesn't necessarily have that. So, we were talking about potentially having something drafted in August to include things like what does actual form look like and what actual seats and participation need to look like for this committee. So the HLA we've asked them to draft something to review in August. And then, group discussion for one more minute.
I do have just one thing, and I did drop it in the notes, but how will we distinguish the hotel? So if I did a survey and if I did a survey and someone stayed in a hotel, then it should have not allowed me to continue. However, versus the phone calls that were emergency shelter, just wanted to make sure we have a way to decipher that. So that we're not losing that data of how many families are in a hotel.
You're basically
So,
talking about the
yeah.
hotel,
Yeah.
hotels, you know.
So the surveys that get taken out for folks that are staying in a hotel is if they self-pay. But if they answer that they're staying in a hotel or motel, it's one of those paid for by who questions. And if the answer is paid for by, for instance, DFL, that is included in the count. If the answer is I paid for it myself, then it is removed. Did that not answer the question?
Yes. It did.
Okay.
No, it did, except for I know that there's some back and forth with that sometimes with your people.
Right,
When
but-
they came in.
Right, but my
That's
team,
been that.
the ones they surveyed were ones that were actually paid for by us. So you're right, but yes, there is back and forth, but
There may
they.
be some additional.
So it's just based on
That's
the
what I
one
mean.
night too, right?
Right, well,
That's
so what
what
I'm
I'm-
saying is, there could be more that were missing, because they were able to pay for
Maybe,
one day, and yet DFL is covering the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, that we could be missing. But I
And
did.
then my discussion point, I wanted to bring up, I referenced it earlier, Tampa, Sarah Kane, you know, she is Catholic Charities, she's on the time, or Hillsborough Committee. They recruited quite a few from Tampa to participate in ours because we were concerned with volunteers, so I did just want to acknowledge that their point in time is February 27th, and I just sent the link to Victoria, if you wouldn't mind sharing with the committee. or if there's anyone that is able to volunteer, which is also a learning opportunity for ours. I'm at a conference, so I will not be there, but it is live on their page. When is it, February?
It's February, oh, where is it? Why is it not?
I just emailed it to you, I'm gonna be better link.
But yeah, if not, I'll pull up my email. There it is. I did, for what it's worth, include this in the volunteer follow-up. So hopefully some people register as well. But yeah, seriously, do register. Their shifts are very different than ours. That was the very first thing I noticed.
Yes.
And they have it set up in a way that I think is really interesting, and it is a little bit more in line with what we had talked about potentially doing, and maybe for next year. So they do 7 to 12 and 3 to 8. And they have all of these different areas listed as well.
And then, like I said, those are like Eventbrite tickets, so I don't know what their training looks like, to be honest.
It's just a online training seminar that you can take at your own time if you want. It's completely self-done.
So, what?
Yeah.
It's the same survey, 1, 2, 3, that's done here. And result. Yeah.
But you will need a new login.
Yes, we will. Yeah, it's also using the website version of it, so you should input your name as the first question.
Oh my goodness. All right, so we need to find out what that is. And I'm gonna talk to Sarah and learn more about that, because we need to make it a little bit easier for folks next year.
How that be that?
I just want to give a huge shout out to Victoria. I mean, what a crunch with the hurricanes, and the CLT board said, sure, go. And you did an amazing job pulling it together. I know you had partners involved, and you're, everyone from HLA, I think they went to work almost all day that day on 4 shifts and stuff. So shout out to you and your team for all your support.
Thank you. I appreciate that. On that note, I think that it's important. I know you all heard me talk about how much the county has done for this pit, but we need to talk about it again, because Dominique has done so much. But it's not even just Dominique. Dapo and Allison at the BTS team have put in so many hours into the 2024 and 2025 pit. I think that we should give Pinellas County some kind of extra award for this year. I don't know what it looks like or what it means. Maybe we can figure that out in email, but I think that they should get a pit partner award. What do we think about that?
And I have asked Dapo, I said, are you ready do you want to continue this commitment? He loves it. So he is more of a mapper of literal maps. So this is outside his wheelhouse, but he really feels like he's able to pour into the community in a different way, and he's really enjoyed it last year and this year. So, and Esri actually, sorry, I won't get through the RPIS, it's all the same little group. They actually really like how Pinellas County is doing, even though as challenging as registration was, I could get that. There's potentially some conference opportunities this year, so we'll let you know if that happens or what that looks like, but they want to meet with us to hear how we really help out with this logic and some of that process.
All very, very over my head, but super impressive. Yeah. Seriously.
Being willing to pick this up,
Yeah.
and you've done it for years, and thinking about coach you this year, because I didn't say yes, but that's okay. But I just really want to say, I know we all appreciate it.
Yeah. Did everyone sign in?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 1:35.
I'm gonna have to come to the next meeting.
Hope that it's right. No, but the way, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for that. Thank you.
We is working with Jack. So, when I actually come out, it was big day.
Thank you, Arrow.
Right.
Somehow they watch, I don't know how they.